So as you all know, Little Nightmares 3 came up pretty recently and reception of the game has been mixed, to say the least. Now, I love Little Nightmares. I actually played through the first and second ones pretty recently because I went out on a trip and someone gave me their Switch to play Little Nightmares 1 and 2 on, so thank you to the guy who did that. And while I'm horrible at puzzles and horror, I still grew to love the franchise, so when I heard a third game was made, I was beyond excited to play it, only to be met with disappointment. Now, before I go and tell you on what this game did wrong, I want to preface that I do not hate this game. I chose the word disappointing and not horrible because I did like playing the game. In fact, I even think it does some things very well, and I think it's important to know on what they did good and what they fell off on, as it's clear that there definitely was some effort put in here, but the potential for this game was never fully realized, and that's what irks me the most about this game. But that's enough from me. Let's first talk about what this game did right. Now remember, this video contains heavy spoilers of all three Little Nightmares games, so please proceed with caution. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, despite the immense backlash this game got, there's definitely some things I have to applaud that supermassive games did well. Even if it was a very small amount that they got right, but that's besides the point. One of the things that Little Nightmares has always done incredibly well is their environments. They always tell a story, they make you feel small and uncomfortable, and they're meant to be giant forms of exaggerated symbolisms of things in the real world. And this is something that Little Nightmares 3 does well, which was their environments. In the game, we go through 4 different locations, and each location tells a different story of this dimension we find ourselves in. In the first chapter, we find ourselves in the desert and arrive in a town filled with people who are petrified. We wonder why and who did this to the townspeople, and soon it becomes evident who was the one that caused this giant oversized baby doll who roams around the city and causes mayhem for his amusement. We're able to escape and arrive in a factory of sorts, which is one of my favorite areas of the game. It's huge, it reeks of pollution and overproduction, and we see who's in charge of this place, which is the supervisor. Her movements are snappy, and the noises she makes sounds like an overworked old librarian. This is someone who could definitely use a break and a vacation. She then snaps and takes her anger out on us, only for us to give her an early retirement. We then move to the carnival, which by far is the best environment of this game. It is very similar to the mall in which guests come in, the owner provides them with food and entertainment, and then kills them. We also get to see the inner workings of this twisted carnival, but thankfully we're able to escape. Then we arrive at the final destination, which is the institution. It's a place we know all too well, it seems, and houses an oversized middle-aged man we fight to the death with. Now, everything I just said is not told to you by the game, but is something you can figure out just by looking at the characters and the environment. And the fact that you can build such an in-depth story without saying a word is incredible. But besides the map design, I think another thing that was interesting was the addition of multiplayer. It definitely played a huge role in my enjoyment with this game, and had I not played it with a friend, I don't think I would have enjoyed this game nearly as much. Although, there's no couch co-op, so yeah, that's cool. One final thing that I think that's obvious is that this game looks incredible. I think it's the best looking game out of all 3 of them, and combining that with the already stunning environments complements the visuals very well. But that's all I really have to say about the positives for this game. Now we have to talk about what made this game the worst in the series. Now we go on to the negatives, which there are a lot, so I'll try to keep it short. I think a negative that most people talk about is the playtime and cost of the game. Now, me and my friend, we're not good at this game whatsoever, and you can see that with some of these clips that I'm about to show right now. Wait, what?
Okay, so you're just not shooting them. Okay. Oh my god!
We made it.
I did not make it!
Yo, what are we doing? What? Why did you fall off? Dude, no. What? Yeah, I think it's safe to say that we were horrible at the game, but despite that fact, we were able to finish the game within just about 4 hours, which is kind of short for me considering that Little Nightmares 1 usually takes around 4 hours to complete, and that game was much smaller than Little Nightmares 3, so then how come both Little Nightmares 1 and 3 have similar playtime, despite Little Nightmares 3 having more content? It's the level and puzzle design. They're atrocious. It's hard to even classify these as puzzles because they're so straightforward and simple, and that's coming from a dum-dum like me. I said before that Little Nightmares 1 takes around 4 hours to complete, but for me I think I took around like 5 to 6 hours to complete because I'm horrible at puzzles, and I'm not bashing Little Nightmares 1 and 2 for that. In fact, I did find it fun trying to solve them and felt really smart figuring it out, especially later on when you start noticing the little things the game does to hint you on what to do next. In this game, I don't feel challenged, more so it just seems like a big chore of just drag this to here to move to the next room. And I don't want to say all the puzzles or levels were bad. In fact, I think some of the puzzles and levels in the institution were pretty creative, like how you use the doll to maneuver around the facility, but it kinda sucks that the only good puzzles were at the end of the game, and you have to wad through so many mind-numbing levels to get to it. Now this kinda leads to my next complaint, which is this game kinda feels slow at times, which sucks considering it's only 4 hours. Most of the time I just felt like I was holding D, walking in an event for 50% of the game, then hop out the event and then boom, big event happens. The pacing of this game is just not it at all for me and is really predictable. It's more so like a bumpy road rather than a smooth path. And next up, what I want to bring up is the monster design. While they're cool, they just sort of feel unoriginal. It kind of feels like the developers of Supermassive Games saw the monsters of Little Nightmares 1 and 2, copied them, but didn't see what made those monsters so terrifying and special. For example, the guests in Little Nightmares 1, what made them so terrifying was their appetite, their gluttony, how they scarf down food as if they're starving. They're so obese that they can't even stand up properly, having to resort to crawling to catch up to the player. This leads up to their chase scenes in which they literally climb on top of each other like it's zombie tsunami. The guests in Little Nightmares 3, however, kinda don't really have a presence in the carnival, more so acting like bumbling idiots rather than monsters. Another comparison is the teacher and the supervisor. What made the teacher horrifying was, while her design was normal looking, and all she had was just a long neck, it was how the developers made levels around her. She would use her long neck to search areas, and since she's so sensitive to noise, the game would purposely place objects in your way that you had to walk through, which would alert her. Then there's the vent chase scene, which is just amazing. In most chase scenes, usually when you get to small areas like the vents or under the floor, you assume you'll be safe. She breaks this rule in the most terrifying way possible, screeching at you while shoving her head through the vent. They creatively use her gimmick for levels and chase scenes, which is what makes her design so special. The same can be said for almost all the monsters in Little Nightmares 1 and 2, but with the supervisor, they do nothing with her gimmick that really made her memorable. It kind of feels like they just gave her that to make her appear creepy. Then there's the Puppet Master, who's meant to sort of be a counterpart to the lady in Little Nightmares 1, except the only thing that's interesting about him is that he kidnaps people and has a puppet, and honestly his puppet was more terrifying than the actual dude himself. Then there's Otto, which honestly his design is just not that interesting to me. He's just a very large, middle-aged man that the game doesn't really do much with other than the final confrontation. And then there's the baby, who I actually think is a well-designed monster, with her eye that can petrify people, and also how it acts as an actual baby, with how curious it is, and when it destroys buildings and plays with objects from the city. But that wraps up all I really had to say with the negatives, and honestly, I am really disappointed on how they dropped the ball with this game, and had Supermassive Games closely studied what made the first and second Little Nightmares games good, I think they would have definitely lived up to the high expectations the fandom had. But that's enough for me. Let's move on to the discussion. So what caused this game to get the negative reception it got? I think the main factor was its lack of creativity and innovation. Like I said before, a lot of this game kind of feels like Supermassive trying to copy Little Nightmares, but not understanding what made it great. I think had they mixed their own ideas and studied more on the Little Nightmares franchise, they definitely would have had this game live up to the potential that people thought it was. And if there ever is going to be another Little Nightmares game, I want them to scare me and make me think, not impress me visually. And also maybe add, 2 more hours of gameplay. But that's all I really had to say about this game. If you guys have some thoughts about this game that I didn't really talk about and you guys want to share, let me know down in the comments and leave a like. But That's all for me. See you guys in the next one.